Now, once you've simply decided the new you, the life that you want to live, right, and you snap yourself into that lifestyle, and you begin to see clearly exactly the life you want to live and what you're manifesting, right? You know who you want to be, you know the life you want to live. Once you've simply decided and you've gained that clarity, a key part of the process, right, that many struggle with, it can be the tricky part, is aligning yourself with that frequency, being that person, doing the things that make you that person, living the lifestyle before maybe that the 3D's caught up. It's aligning yourself with that destiny, right, that desired self. Now this can be the tricky thing, staying on that frequency that you would be. In a way, being it before you are it makes you it. Right? And then it's just a matter of time before that feedback loop catches up and you are that person, you are living that lifestyle, doing the things that your desired self would do. So this requires staying on that frequency beyond that initial clarity, that initial vibration, that initial inspiration, that initial motivation, right? It requires you to stay on that frequency beyond that period of time for you to have long enough for the 3D to catch up and you to start to see and feel the fruits of your labor, right? The fruits of you simply deciding this new life that you want to live, what this new you is, this new version of you. And this can be difficult, right? Getting beyond that initial clarity and motivation and staying true and staying on that path for the feedback loop to catch up. Now, you could say that this requires discipline, and in some ways it is that, right? But it's that holding on to that clarity so that you don't fall off of that frequency. You get yourself onto it, you see what you need to be doing, and you see where you need to be operating from for that desired self would be. And then weeks can pass, and you're on it, you're riding that wave. And sooner or later that will become your default self, right? But you also might experience some periods of time, maybe a certain week, a certain mood will change, a certain shift will happen in yourself. It could be the old you clinging on that's trying to drag you back. Or it could just be that you start losing a bit of clarity, right? Start losing that motivation, that initial inspiration when you made that simply deciding change. And this can be fleeting, right? Or it can last a long periods of time, and you might, without realizing it, start moving away from that frequency, start moving away from the things that would make you that desired self, that would bring in that new version of you, right? And this is us, without us realizing, becoming unaligned. We start, without us realizing, we can become unaligned with that desired self. And I think a key part of this, remaining disciplined, but also remaining or holding on to that clarity beyond motivation and inspiration, requires this constant reflection and checking in, right? And for me, it's interesting because Sunday evenings for me have become a sacred time. And it's because I sort of set up the week ahead exactly how I want it to be. And it's not just in the way of like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I need to do this. It's not so much a to-do list. It's more of like an energy check. I write down and I sit with myself and I dive into all the things that I'm going through and where I'm heading. And I write it all down. It's like the energy I want to be aware of, the things I want to be aware of the week going ahead, right? And this has become a sacred time, and funny enough, one of my favourite parts of the week now. I absolutely love my Sunday nights. Funny enough, me recording this right now is a Sunday night, and it's a bit later than I would normally be recording, but I've fallen in love with these hours to set up the week ahead. And this allows me to check in and hold on to that clarity. And I also do it for the month ahead as well, right? But it helps me regain or sustain that clarity for the week ahead, things to focus on, right? So that keeps me aligned with the desired frequency that I want to be at, operating from, right? Keeps everything in check, keeps that clarity there through reflection, and also just checking in. And this is a good practice anyway, right? We should be just checking in with ourselves, how we feel, where we're heading, what we want to be doing, as part of just staying in our flow of our lives. But definitely an important part of staying aligned with your new desired self or your true self, right? So that we don't, without realizing it, start wandering off and lowering our frequency or changing our frequency, falling back into old ways, old patterns. To hold that vision, hold that spark. And sure, it's easier when you're doing things that you love, and I talk a lot about that, right? Do the things that spark love and passion, and that discipline becomes easier when you're coming from that place, because it's something that is a love of yours and something that you could keep on doing, and you're more likely to be successful in that field if you absolutely love it, right? If you're doing things that fuel you in such a way that you fall asleep with a smile on your face. But this checking in, and for me, it's I do this every day, but my Sunday nights, right, was a big one for me in my mind. I very much see them as a sacred time, those Sunday evenings, those hours before bed, purely because I'm checking in with myself and sustaining that clarity for what I want the week to be ahead. And the beautiful thing with this is, as you go through the week, you can then return to that page in your book, in your journal, or whatever it is, and check in with yourself. Maybe you're having a little wobble, or if you're just kind of wanting to see how the week's going, to check back in with yourself, you can go back to see what you wrote at the start of the week or at the end of the week before on that Sunday night, and just start seeing how it's playing out for you, right? Have there been any energies that you noted down that you wanted to be aware of? How have they played out? Have they played out? Have you sort of fallen back into things? Have you been dealing with some old patterns of yourself that you're aware you're moving away from? Have they popped up again in that week? And this is just that clarity that keeps you on track, that keeps that vision in mind, and makes that new you stay in the forefront of your mind, that you're operating from that frequency as often as possible, or not moving away from it at all, right? To be very aware when you are moving away from it, or the thoughts that pop into mind, or the challenges that come up that the old you would be thriving in, basically, right? And this is why I now absolutely love my Sundays, and I haven't forced that. That checking in on a Sunday night for the week ahead is very much me locking in. That's my version of locking in. It allows me to stay locked in. Even if there's rest days involved, it's more so, as I said, it's less to do for me about a to-do list and more so about an energy check. What energies I want to be aware of within myself, or what's going on around me, and things to be aware of for the week ahead, for me to stay aligned with the person that I am and the person that I want to be in days, months, years to come, right? And I love this, and I love that it's become such a sacred time of night for me, or such a sacred time of the week for me as a Sunday night, because when I was younger, Sundays I dreaded, it'd get to about 7 o'clock and I'd realised that school tomorrow. I didn't want to do it, I knew I had a week ahead of school. I didn't enjoy school myself. So I love the fact that now Sunday nights has become some of my favourite parts of the week, purely because I'm checking in with myself and aligning myself with what I want the next week to be, or at least who I want to be for this next week, the things I want to be aware of, the things I want to be doing, the things that I want to be bringing into my life, and staying clear on that, right? And the fact that Sundays and this part of my week has become one of my favourite parts of the week just goes to show how much I now love my week, right? Because I'm not dreading the new week starting. I'm actually getting amped up for the next week. The week ahead, I end up getting amped up for it, and I love it. It becomes this buzz. I fuel myself in a positive way, knowing that I'm going to go into this new week being truly aligned with exactly what I want it to be, knowing that I've got the power, we have the power to decide what energy we're going to approach the week in, what things we're going to be aware of, what part we're going to play in these coming days. And that says a lot, right? It's very hard to do that if you're doing things that you don't like, or you feel that you aren't aligned with, or things that are not what you want to be doing, things that aren't coming from that authentic place. And this just goes to show me, like me as a child going to school, I didn't want to be going to school, therefore I dreaded the week ahead. Now I choose to fill my times with things that fuel me in a positive light, the things that I've got passion about. And Sunday nights have become one of my favourite parts of the week, getting myself amped up, getting myself locked in for what that week's going to be. And that's amazing, right? But the message I want to highlight here is, if you're aligning yourself, or you're becoming this new version of yourself, this desired version of yourself that you want to be, you've got to remain onto that. You've got to sustain that clarity beyond the motivation and inspiration, right? To keep yourself in check, that you're coming from that frequency that person and that version of you would be. Set your week up. Highlight all the things that you want to be aware of energetically. What approach you want to have, what to be aware of, what pitfalls not to fall back into, even on a subtle level, and really get to grips with how that week's going to play out for you, knowing that you've got the power to decide how you're going to approach it. And I love that, that real checking in with yourself. And as I said, doing this in the mornings and the nights of each day as well, maybe on a small level, just checking in with yourself is something we can all be doing, right? But to stay aligned with that frequency, to have that recap at the end of the week, but also setting up the new week is a really powerful thing. And as I said, for me, something that's become quite sacred. I really admire it, you know, that tuning in with myself and getting myself amped up and getting myself ready to lock back in for another week of bliss on planet Earth, right? So, yeah, it's a good thing to be aware of, because remaining in alignment with your new version of yourself requires you to be on the frequency of that vision, right? It's not about forcing, but it's about being and doing the things that version of you would do. And you can simply decide right away what that looks like and what that is for you. So then it's about remaining on that path, remaining on that frequency. And that requires you to hold that vision and clarity through the challenges, through the burdens, through the changes in routine, right? For me, I've just had a week where my routine changed. I was out of my routine. I had a trip away. I've been socializing and doing some things, different things I would normally do in a normal week. Therefore, Sunday night right now, as I record this, I'm aware that I've got to get back into some certain things and some certain habits that I haven't done over the last 5 days, just because of my changing circumstances. So these sorts of things can throw you off. They can make you lose clarity on what this new version is of yourself, and to check in, to make sure that you're checking in, to make sure you're holding on to that clarity and vision for who you are and who you're going to be in the future and where you're heading, and what steps to take to get there, but also what things to be aware of to keep you on that path, to keep you on that vibration is really key. And it takes you past the motivation and the inspiration, and more so just holding on to that clarity. Again, like right now, I think off the back of the week that I've had, I'm feeling quite subdued, right? I'm feeling quite like ready for a good night's sleep. But before I have that good night's sleep, I'm definitely going to have my sacred time of setting up the week ahead, knowing that I'm attacking it in the right way that I want to be attacking it and approaching it. This constant checking in with yourself and giving power back to yourself in how you can approach your week, and that keeps you aligned with who you are and who you want to be, and that desired self and that new lifestyle that you're choosing, or maybe the one that you already live, but staying aligned in that frequency. Different wounds and challenges come up. We've got fun to have, we've got people to see and enjoy, and through doing all these things, the challenges and the fun as well, we've got to stay at that frequency that we want to be coming from as much as possible, or just on that frequency regardless, and not being shaken off depending where you're at in that journey, right? And life's not perfect. We're going to get thrown off in different places. We're going to have wounds come up and challenges come up that show us where we're at in different areas of our life. So to have that clarity is key, you know, and you're going to see it more clearly. And then you're going to be able to reflect on the week, but also set up the following week in a way that suits you. And I really encourage this time with yourself just to check in and hold on to that clarity. Sacred Sundays, a beautiful thing. And yeah, make the most of that time whenever it is for you, right? For you, it might not be on a Sunday night, but it just so happens that for me, that's very much occurred over the months, and just goes to show that when you're doing things that you really want to do, but that require you to stay disciplined and locked in on a certain mindset and a certain frequency, you do need that clarity, because without you realizing, sometimes that can waver off and you start coming from another place that isn't actually your desired self. If you're not checking in with yourself regularly and setting that up and making sure that you're gaining and retaining that vision, then without you realizing it, you can fall off and wonder why you're not seeing results or making progress forward to becoming that person you want to be. So I recommend staying true and keep reflecting, and remember that you've got the power to approach each day, each moment exactly how you want it, being aware of what you're going through, where you want to go, and being aware of your wounds, the things you struggle with, but also your strengths, and just have that clarity on that desired self, that vision, and hold on to that, so that you've got it so clear in your mind that you approach the week coming from that frequency, coming from that vibration. Have a good week. Take care of yourself. Peace.